Ciao ragazzi, sono Max, Andy è dietro la telecamera e siamo qui con the living legend, the man who invented the mixing engineer figure, Bob Clearmountain. Bob, thanks for being here.
Thank
you very much.
Interviewing me. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. Nice. It's a great pleasure, of course, for me to be here. Let's go from the beginning. Born in Connecticut.
Connecticut, yeah, Greenwich, Connecticut. Yeah.
From an Italian father. I didn't know that. From Genoa, right?
Originally, yeah, he was born in Genoa.
Great. So Italians do it better, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then you started as a bass player.
Bass player, that's right.
But
yeah.
the stage was not your place of election. You didn't like very much the stage.
That's right. I didn't. I like being in the spotlight. Just doing this here is
it's just
for me.
I understand. And so, media sound, your first internship in a professional studio, right?
Right. Well, what they hired me as a runner, and my first day at work, I did one delivery, and I came back, and they're looking for me, and I thought I was in trouble, and they said, no, we don't need a runner, we need an assistant. Get down to Studio A, and my first session was Duke Ellington. Yeah, so you know the story.
Yeah, and when Duke Ellington is your first session, you understand that maybe it's your way, right? Because Duke Ellington as the first session. Were you scared or?
Yeah, sure, I was scared. Yeah,
because I heard an interview. You were kind of confident because you told the studio manager, one day I'll do something great in this.
Yeah, I thought, well, I didn't know if I'd do something great, but I thought I would be good at it.
Okay.
Because I was I was the member of the band that was recording the gigs and recording the rehearsals, and so I just liked the whole idea of recording. And the first time I went into the studio, I thought, well, I could just live in this place, and I'm still living in that place.
Yeah, you're still living in that place. And then you meet Tony Bon Jovi.
Right, he was one of the engineers there. He's one of the mixers.
And he asked you to join him to build the power station.
That's right. He had done well with, he had some hits. He did Star Wars, Disco Star Wars.
Yeah.
And Gloria Gaynor, That Never Can Say Goodbye.
Yeah.
He produced. And so he had some big hits. He had some money. He said, look, I've made some money. I want to build my own studio. Do you want to be part of that? And I was the first one he asked. And I said, okay, yeah, if we can make it a rock studio.
Yeah.
Because up to that point it was mostly R&B, which
Yeah.
I loved the R&B, making the R&B records. But I grew up listening to British rock and
the CBGBs every Saturday night,
yeah,
right?
I think I have a CBGB's t-shirt on.
Yeah.
And but that came later, of course.
Yeah.
But he said it can be any kind of studio as long as people come
And pay.
and pay. Right, exactly. So that's fine.
Yeah. And everything began there because you started recording Le Chic and Sister Sledge and all those records that you say, I didn't even know on which record would that song go, because
That's right.
they recorded a bunch of songs and then some were in the Chic records, some Sister Sledge.
Yeah, exactly.
And you were the recording engineer because everybody knows you as the #1 mixer in the world, but you were a great recording engineer and producer. Bryan Adams, first records, and Sister Sledge, Nile Rodgers, Bernard Edwards. That was not rock, but it was cool.
Yeah, it was R&B. I mean, I had a lot of training in R&B records, but rock as well. And Nile Rodgers actually hung out with Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
When he was younger, and in Greenwich Village in Lower Manhattan, and so he was a big Roxy Music fan, and so he was in, besides the R&B and the disco, he was into the rock music as well, and so we got along great. We became really close friends.
He has a kind of rock attitude in
really
the way he
does.
plays, because it's powerful, groovy. It's rock and roll. It's not rock and roll, but it is. Me too.
It's that combination.
Yeah.
So we hit it off because we were both had sort of R&B and rock combined thing, you know.
And those records were very dry.
Yeah.
Not a lot of ambient.
There's a bit of ambient.
No, I mean, but you are very famous for your use of reverb and delays. And two of maybe the most famous of your reverb, one is the Born in the USA
right. The gated snare drum, yeah.
And the other one is the Start Me Up guitar in the beginning, which was the ladies' room downstairs,
the ladies' room
right?
in the basement, yeah, that's right.
We can find those two and all your other reverbs and delay in your plugin, right?
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit how it came about?
Well, I didn't actually have an impulse response of the ladies' room.
No,
and
yeah.
I have it now actually because
Yeah.
they made it for me because it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
They changed the basement, they remodeled it. But I had my own chambers at Mix This in my studio.
Yeah.
It was just when we bought the house, it was a wine cellar, which is a long hallway with no ventilation. And I thought, oh, this could make a great echo chamber. It's one of the reasons we bought that house. And so we split it in two. And I was trying to get that same sort of reverb, that short, bright reverb, which it really comes from Motown. And I always liked the Motown records and that short, bright reverb. And so I was trying to duplicate that.
So everybody can have the same reverb that you used on Start Me Up if they buy your Clearmountain domain.
Well, similar, yeah, it's a similar sound, and hopefully the next version will actually have that.
Okay.
The ladies' room, because now I have an impulse. It's just
you have
stereo
the impulse response of that same
of the ladies' room. Yeah.
Room. Oh,
yeah,
that's great. That's
but
great.
I haven't used it yet because we haven't come out with a new plugin.
So
I hope
it's coming. It's coming, a new release with that one, that impulse response also.
Yeah.
There are two things over the other. I love everything in your mixes, of course.
Thank you.
But to me, two things come before the others, and one is balance. The way you balance a mix to me is a master.
Oh, thank you.
And my question is, when you are balancing the record, are you envisioning the band, or you just go with your ear, or you envision the band playing?
Well, sometimes it's the band playing, but very often I think of all the elements in a mix almost like characters in a play.
Okay.
Right? Like it's a stage, and the different elements have a different part of the story to tell.
Yeah.
Right? And they add to the story. Obviously, the main story is the vocals.
Okay.
And so these all characters, and they come and go during a mix. Sometimes depends on what it is, and so I think, okay, what are they adding to the story, and are they in the way of the story, or are they adding to the story? And so depends on, like the panning is always very important in the stereo mix.
Yes.
And so in the Atmos mix, obviously that's important as well.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go on.
You put stuff in the middle also. You are not LCR. You pan in the middle.
No, depending.
Like 18 Till I Die. It's a Bryan Adams song. The guitars are left or right, but there are in like 30% here, 30% in between. Yeah.
Right. It depends on the.
It depends on what the character has to say.
Exactly. Yeah, and their importance to the song, and sometimes it's some of it's a holdover from the old days, like in the 70s.
Yeah.
We had to do compatible mixes because a lot of radio stations were mono.
Okay.
Right,
okay,
and so you couldn't pan anything extreme.
Extreme, because you missed it. Then
so like that record was, I mean, that was quite some time ago. So there was still a bit of that thinking that well, you don't want to pan anything that's very important too extreme. Nowadays it's less. You can be more extreme because everything's stereo.
But
at least.
when you do a record like that, what you don't produce, Matt Lang was producing that record. Is Matt Lang in the room when you mix?
Oh yeah, unfortunately, yeah. I
He's
don't know.
picky.
No
He's
disrespect to
No,
he's an amazing producer, but he's very picky.
Picky,
very,
yeah.
you know, he kind of dictates every single little tiniest sound in a mix, and you know, sometimes you just kind of.
Yeah, it took 11 months to mix Hysteria. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's no reason. I don't think there's any reason for that. And, you know, I mean, he should let other people.
It's a masterpiece, so I cannot say anything, but you can.
Yeah, but if he had just let Mike Shipley mix it himself, I think
in 1 month it would be the same.
I think it would have been certainly as good.
Yes,
and it wouldn't have taken 11 months.
11 months, you go crazy.
You know.
But the other thing is the vocal, which for you and for everybody in popular music, let's say, it's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Especially with Bryan Adams, just because you can, because he is one of the greatest singers ever. Yeah. The vocal is bone dry. Like in a record like On a Day Like Today, I don't know if you remember the record because it was, you did thousands of records, but there, in that record, the song On a Day Like Today, the vocal is bone dry.
Right, yeah. Sometimes it would be, depending on the...
But when it's bone dry like that, it's bone dry or you have early reflection?
I don't remember what it's that specifically, but I might have had a little bit of ambience.
A little bit.
Back then I was using a thing called a space station.
Okay, yeah.
Which is like, to me it was like, it reminded me of a dirty basement.
Yeah,
you know, like a basement with that's all got dust and dirt on it because it was pretty kind of grungy sounding.
Yeah.
But it had that ambient kind of a sound, but not a very clean ambience, and so I probably had a little bit of that on there.
Yeah.
Because I used to use it. But I might go back to that because it was a good sound.
That's such a great record. Bob Rock was producing that. Bob was in the.
Right. Yeah, that's right. He produced that.
Yeah. But he wasn't in the room when you mixed it.
I think he was. I think we did that at
in Vancouver.
Let me see. I think we did that in Vancouver. I can't remember. I mixed them up because I did so many. But that one I think we did in Vancouver. Yeah, with Bob. That's right.
That's incredible records. And the last record that I bother you with, of course, is the one everybody bothers you. Is Tears for Fears, Women in Chains.
Women in Chains, I know. I get a lot of comments about that.
Yeah, because the vocals, of course, they are great singers.
It's a great production,
it's
too.
A great
Roland
production.
Orzabal did a wonderful job.
Can you just make all of us common mixing engineer a little bit feel better? Can you tell what the guy in Tears for Fears told you when he heard the first mix of Sowing the Seeds?
Oh yeah. Well, I spent like a day on that mix, and then I played it for him, and he says, "No, that's terrible." He said it was nothing in the mix that he thought was worth anything. You know, he says, "No, that's," and I was like, "Oh,
Okay.
And so I said, "Can you give me some clues?" And he told me some things, and I made a few changes, and no. And so I said, "Okay, well, am I fired?" He said, "No, let's try another song." He's very professional. I have a lot of respect for Roland Orzabal because instead of just telling me to go away, he said, "Well, let's try a different song. You know, maybe that'll work." And then we did a song called "Year of the Knife."
Yeah.
And he liked the way that came out. And I think David Bascom, the producer, did another mix, just the last few bars. They wanted that a little bit different. And okay, and then he said, "Oh, well, come back and let's do a Woman in Chains." Did that, and he was quite happy with that one.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
No, I said because we tend to think that everything you do is perfect.
No,
and nobody always says, no, and you do, oh great, thank you. No, even for the big ones, there are some rejection.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's
no, it happens. There was one time I mixed it was right after I did the Avalon record.
Yeah.
And so I had
Roxy Music.
Roxy Music, this kind of big, spacious you know, all this space in the mix. And it was an Australian band called the Divinals, and they were like a punk band, really. And so I was thinking very big and wide, and they're listening to it, and they're not happy, you know. And so they told me, they said, "Look, we need to talk to you. This, you don't understand. What we're not like Roxy music. We're like a little spiky ball, like a really irritating, you know, annoying. We just spikes coming out, and of course they're a punk band." And I went and listened to it. I got it so wrong. I just started over, you know, and then remixed it, thinking that with that image in my mind. And they were really happy, you know.
Great.
But it's good. They put me in my place. I mean, these were just these kids from Australia.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought I was the big shot mixer.
Yeah,
you know? And
And they
were
said,
like,
no, you
you're
got
not.
it wrong.
You got it wrong. Which is it was a very great lesson for me.
Yeah,
You know? And for anybody that thinks they're the best thing in the world, no. You can always learn. You can learn from anyone.
Yeah.
The best thing.
Oh, we have to go. We got a cab.
Okay.
So such a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for giving us your time.
All right.
It was a pleasure. Bob Clearmountain.